What is up? GoodMicWork back at you again. Just wanted to come up here and give NXT TakeOver a short review. I told all of you that if I was able to catch the show and had enough time to review it that I would. And I think I might try to make this a regular thing as far as my video schedule goes this summer, because the summer's a very busy time, it's a very fun time, and generally what I've been doing is coming up and reviewing Raw every week, and then anything that happens in wrestling, any big major news stories or anything like that that I need to talk about outside of WWE, I usually try to include that in my Raw review as well and talk about it all at once. But since everything is about to be shaken up anyway, starting July 19th when SmackDown goes live, and I kind of have to rethink how I'm going to do my reviews, I figured that what I'm going to try to do is maybe just come up here from time to time, a couple times a week, and talk about anything that needs to be talked about. Last week I did that twice when we had the passing of Muhammad Ali and Brock Lesnar announced to return to the UFC. And I uploaded about a 10-minute video on each subject giving my thoughts about it, so I'm going to try to do that from time to time throughout this summer. And since we had NXT TakeOver last night, I figured I would come up here and give you a short review on it, just a few thoughts, and I'm also going to talk about a couple of other things that I omitted to talk about last week. Number one is the very controversial match between Will Ospreay and Ricochet that took place in Japan a couple of weeks ago that everybody has been talking about. And then, of course, one of the most talked about stories in wrestling right now is the incredibly bizarre contract signing between Matt and Jeff Hardy for their big match at TNA Slammiversary, I think, which I think might be this weekend. So after my brief NXT review, stay tuned, and I will give you a few thoughts on those two subjects as well. As far as last night's NXT TakeOver goes, I wasn't home to see the show live, unfortunately, so I didn't enjoy the pleasure of live tweeting and talking about it with all of you. But I did catch it very late last night. I actually went out with some friends, had a couple of beers, came home, and laid in bed and watched it at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So, as per usual, with all of these NXT TakeOver specials, they do not disappoint. Not one time ever have I ever watched one of these specials and said, oh, that wasn't a very good show. The whole entire brand and product and the way it's presented to the audience, and of course the phenomenal work of all the talent down there is just so exciting to watch, and it's just such a nice alternative. It's such a nice breath of fresh air away from your typical shit that you see on Raw and SmackDown, and this is amazing that this is all the same company. NXT gives me that fix or that satisfaction that I got from watching something like ECW 20 years ago or something. It just gave you that little break from the typical WWE or WCW stuff, and it was such a fun and different promotion to watch, and NXT has accomplished this. So we'll go through each match here. I'm not going to get too detailed about it, just going to give short opinions on each. The show opened up with two guys that I'm not that familiar with. Newcomer Andrade Cien Almas was taking on Ty Dillinger. Does anybody know if Ty Dillinger's dad's name is Doug? That's the first thing that I thought of for some reason. Don't ask me why. But Almas looked very good. They put him over strong, and some really fun, exciting moves, and pretty typical opening match that you see at these NXT TakeOver shows. Next match was for the NXT Tag Team titles. Champions American Alpha defending against the Revival, former champions. Now, American Alpha, I believe, defeated the Revival in Dallas before WrestleMania at that TakeOver show, if I'm not mistaken. And the Revival regained the tag team titles. They said they're the first tag team ever to repeat as tag team champions. So basically that makes them the winningest tag team in NXT history. That's kind of a big deal. I like them. I like their look. They remind me of Tully and Arn. And American Alpha's not half bad either. And now that they've dropped the belts, you got to wonder when their move up to the main roster might be. But before they do that, they got to take on some new opponents. After the match, after they lost the belts, they are attacked by two behemoths. These two large monsters get in the ring and start beating the shit out of them. And I had no idea who they were. I've never seen them before. Some of you guys told me that their name on the independent circuit is the Authors of Pain or something like that. So they're in the ring there. They're wearing gear that's similar to the Shield almost, pants and a black tank top, all in black. Beat the shit out of the baby faces and looked impressive as hell. And if that wasn't good enough, you look out in the aisleway, and who's standing there but none other than Paul Ellering, which I was so happy to see that. I have been following Paul Ellering's daughter, Rachel Ellering, on Twitter for the past couple of years now, and she's been training to become a wrestler, and I've been watching her ever since she started. She trained with Lance Storm. I've watched a few of her matches on the independent circuit. She even had an NXT match recently, and I just fell in love with her. I think she's going to be great. Mark my words, I'm calling it right now. In 3 years, this girl's going to be a big deal on the main roster. And she's got it in her blood. She's got it in her family. She's the daughter of a legendary wrestling manager, one of my all-time favorite personalities growing up. I loved Paul Ellering. always in shape, one of the smartest people ever in professional wrestling. You never hear a bad thing about Paul Ellering. And the fact that he's come in to do this with NXT makes me happy for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's great to see him managing a big monster tag team again, just like he did all those many years ago, 30 plus years now. But also, this probably speaks pretty well for his daughter. She's coming in there to help out. You know she's probably going to get another opportunity, and I hope that they sign her to an NXT contract if they have not yet already. And as far as Paul Ellering goes, I don't know if this is just going to be a short-time deal, if he's going to be the permanent manager of these guys, and if they get over in NXT and eventually move up to the main roster a year or so from now, if Paul Ellering will join them. So the extent of Paul Ellering's involvement with NXT, I don't know. But to me, it doesn't matter. Just to see him there and to see him again brought a huge smile to my face, and it was one of the highlights of the show for me. It's tough for me to choose the match of the night here. I love the main event, but I also loved this one, the match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Austin Aries. A lot of people were really excited to see this. I remember watching them hype it in the past couple of weeks, and I'm like, wow, this is truly sort of a dream match, and I couldn't wait to watch it. And the match, of course, not surprisingly, was unbelievably awesome. I don't think it was as good as the one that Nakamura and Sami Zayn had, but damn close, and I love Austin Aries, and I just loved the whole entire match, entertained by every single minute of it. It's extremely exciting to watch these guys work, especially Nakamura, who I'd only seen a couple of times. I'm impressed as hell, and I think he might be the next guy in line for the NXT title. You would think that he's going to be the guy that they're going to push after Samoa Joe, the way he's been pretty dominant so far. And plus, he's entertaining, and he's pretty charismatic, too. He's got a great entrance. I love everything about the character. NXT Women's title match was up next. This was a match I was really interested in, to see Asuka defending against Nia Jax. Now, Asuka has always been the more dominant, the more powerful, the more scary, opponent in a match. Usually the girls are the ones scared of her, and she's the aggressor. Now she's going up against someone even larger than her, twice as large as her. Nia Jax is humongous. And I had a feeling they would keep the belt on Asuka. Nia Jax I love. She's a member of the Inoue family. She's from right here in San Diego. As a matter of fact, she went to school, I believe, in San Marcos, which is right down the road from where I live. So she's kind of from my neck of the woods. I like having her there because she's different. She doesn't look like your typical women's wrestler or typical diva. She's very Awesome Kong-ish, except I think better and prettier. And maybe her time will come one day, but she did fall victim to Asuka in this match. I liked the story that was told. I mean, this girl is so big, and Asuka just methodically and slowly throughout the duration of the match works her over, and eventually just chops her down like a tree, retaining her title, which I loved. As far as I'm concerned, Asuka can hold that belt for as long as she wants. We also had another surprise in a backstage segment. I can't remember where this took place on the card. I think it might have been, right here before the main event. But William Regal had done an interview backstage earlier on in the show. This was a pre-tape, and they were going back and showing it. And as he's talking, Bobby Roode walks through the hall and walks right past William Regal, and he kind of turns around and looks at him, and I think one of their producers comes up and whispers something in William Regal's ear, and he says, "Excuse me, I've got to go," and he walks into some room where Bobby Roode is. So this is the second time, I believe, that he's appeared on camera. The only time we've seen him before is on that NXT TakeOver show before WrestleMania. So he's obviously coming in, and that's huge news because that's just one more unbelievable piece of talent to add to that already amazing roster. So I'm interested to see where the storyline goes as this fucking fighter jet flies over my house. I apologize if you guys hear an airplane in the background. But I'm hoping as soon as possible on NXT TV, they wind up signing Bobby Roode, and he debuts hopefully by the next TakeOver show at the absolute latest. Main event time for the NXT title, champion Samoa Joe defending against former champion Finn Balor inside of a steel cage. First ever steel cage match in NXT history. And I was excited to see this one too because you knew this was going to finally end the war between these two guys. And we've all just been itching. We've been salivating to get Finn Balor up to that main roster. He, I think, is my favorite NXT character. I absolutely love the presentation of that character and the entrance. All of it is so awesome, and tonight's entrance especially, the way he came down to the ring like that, and I love the way the camera angle caught Finn Balor kind of crouched below the apron and kind of raising his head up. I haven't seen that camera shot done since Vince McMahon did it at WrestleMania 19. That was awesome. The match between him and Joe was everything you thought it would be. Not really any blood this time around, but definitely a hard-hitting, brutal, grueling match. And the finish, oh my god. Muscle buster from the middle rope, are you kidding me? That was an unbelievable spot, and my heart raced a little bit when I saw the way Finn Balor is just perched up there, helpless. That's got to be complete trust between two athletes to be in there, because that's a very dangerous spot to do. And of course, both guys are pros. They executed it perfectly. Great finish. Great victory for Samoa Joe. Congratulations. Finn Balor now is wrapped up his business with Samoa Joe and hopefully wrapped up his business in NXT, and we can get him on the main roster very soon. Now, as far as the other two things I wanted to talk about, we'll stay on the subject of good in-ring wrestling, and I will just briefly give my thoughts on the Will Ospreay and Ricochet match from New Japan. Now, I don't know too much about these guys. I don't follow New Japan or the independents or international wrestling at all. Jesus, now a train is going by. First a fighter jet, now a train. But I got countless links to this match from all of you after it happened. Everybody wanted to know my opinion about it because it was getting a lot of chatter online. And I think one of the first people to start the chatter and start the debates was Vader. Vader somehow, and I follow Vader on Twitter, and he says some weird things sometimes, but, you know, I love Vader. So I guess I understood where he was coming from an older wrestling fan's perspective, and I think a lot of old-timers might feel this way, but it caused a lot of debate online as to whether or not what these two guys did was wrestling. And you know what? I watched the match. I watched the whole thing. Thank you to the dozens of you that sent me the link to that match. And I took a look at it, and I really didn't see the problem. And I'm an old-school wrestling fan. I've been watching since the 70s, okay? If anybody appreciates the way wrestling used to be, it's me. But what I also appreciate is the evolution of the business. I think where some old-timers are confused or something is that they think this is what wrestling is today. No, not at all. What those two guys did, that over-choreographed spot fest, was just a certain style of wrestling. It's a new style that's emerged. Cruiserweight wrestling has been around for a long time, but now it's getting into this like extreme cruiserweight style. And for people that say that just looks like gymnastics or acrobatics or, you know, a well-planned out and choreographed routine, you are correct. It definitely does look like that sometimes. You know, it's just a little bit too planned out and has a lot of over spot calling and things like that, and you can definitely tell that these guys are working together and cooperating with each other, and a lot of it really doesn't look like they are simulating combat at all. But to me, I can live with that because that's not the way all wrestling is now. You know, if you still want hard-hitting, slower, more traditional professional wrestling, you can find that in a lot of places as well. That's just one style. It's not necessarily where wrestling is going. And I appreciate the evolution of the business because you need that. If wrestling stayed the exact same that it was in the 1970s, if every match was Harley Race versus Dick Murdoch, I don't know if wrestling would really be that successful today. You have to evolve, you have to grow, you have to come up with different styles, and now, the way wrestling is, anybody can be a professional wrestler. One of my favorite wrestlers in WWE today, I just talked about him, Finn Balor. He weighs 190 fucking pounds. That would be unheard of in 1982 to say your favorite wrestler was 190 pounds. Nobody would say that because no wrestler was 190 pounds. So I think some of the old-timers, I think some of the traditionalists, they go a little bit too overboard. You know, guys like Jim Cornette and others that really wish the wrestling was the way it used to be and really miss those times. And I'm right there with them. I miss those times just as much as anybody. But at the same time, for the sake of the business and for the sake of this art that we call professional wrestling, I see nothing wrong at all with having a lot of different styles and different styles emerging and growing. I mean, think about it. When the cruiserweights first showed up, when these guys first started showing up on WCW Nitro and the American wrestling fans were introduced to Lucha Libre and that style of wrestling, that looked foreign as hell too. I guarantee you, Ole Anderson was probably not a huge fan of Rey Mysterio matches, okay? So there was a lot of that going on even back then, and when a new style comes up, or, you know, you have a really insanely athletic professional wrestler that's doing things that we've never seen, you know, sometimes the old timers, you know, get their panties in a bunch about it. But to me, I didn't see what the big deal is. Yes, I definitely understood that it looked a little bit way too planned, and it definitely didn't look like they were fighting. But at the same time, it was exciting to watch, and I didn't have a problem with it. I don't want to see the WWE title, the World Heavyweight title, to be defended in a match like that. But I definitely think that can be an attraction on wrestling cards, that if you want to see really good flippy moves, you know, those matches are there for you to see that. And I find no problem in it at all. I don't think the match was a joke or hurt wrestling in any way. I thought those guys did a great job, and it was entertaining as hell, and they're great athletes. And they probably have big futures. I wouldn't be surprised if one or not both of them is wrestling on Raw or SmackDown one day. And finally, I have to save the best for last. Everybody wanted me to comment on the ridiculous... I mean, I'm laughing. I can't even talk about this shit without laughing so hard. What the fuck was that? Okay, the contract signing between Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. They're having a match on the next TNA pay-per-view, which I believe is this Sunday. It might be couple weeks from now. I don't know when the fuck it is. But I guess I don't even know the story. All I know is Matt Hardy is a completely different person. He was TNA champion not long ago. He was Big Money Matt, that arrogant, cocky, douchebag, suit-wearing heel that thinks he's better than everybody else. That I liked. That, I guess, was working for him. But now he's, like, completely different, and he's completely lost his mind. Now, something happened between him and Jeff Hardy. He either lost a match to Jeff Hardy or Jeff Hardy injured him or something like that. And the result of that was Matt Hardy going completely insane. He's got some weird-ass hairstyle now with a yellow streak right down the middle. Reminds me of that Johnny Depp movie from, like, 20 years ago. I forget the name. But he looks ridiculous. He's talking in a horrible accent. I don't know what this accent is supposed to be or where it's supposed to be from, but he sucks at it. And my favorite part of everything is he's calling Jeff Brother Nero, Brother Nero. I mean, every time he said that, I literally laughed out loud. I don't know what the fuck is going on here, but that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And, you know, and before I shit on it too much, part of me wants to think that, because I used to know the Hardys when they were younger. I have not talked to either Hardy Boy in probably 17 or 18 years. It's been a long time. But I did live in the same area as them, and I met them a bunch of times when they were younger and teenagers and first getting into the WWE even. And they never seemed this weird. And Matt Hardy is also, he's a little bit funny. He's not as funny as maybe Christian is, you know, with Edge and Christian. But he definitely has a comedic side to him. He even had a video up not long ago on his YouTube channel where he's raising awareness. It was supposed to be this like heartfelt PSA to raise awareness for rich people having trouble finding where to store their money. And Matt Hardy is opening up cupboards and there's money falling out. And he's like, I just don't know where to store it. I need help. I need you guys to donate to help me build this giant bank vault for me to store all of my money. And he's using $20 bills as napkins and he's wiping his mouth. And it's fucking hilarious. So Matt Hardy is funny. So part of me is hoping that they purposely made this so fucking ridiculous just so we would all get a laugh out of it. Because it was insane. I mean, this is the camera crew. How are these guys even keeping a straight face watching this shit? It all took place at Matt Hardy's house. Him and Jeff have big properties down in their hometown in North Carolina. They never moved away from there. Matt Hardy's wife and kid are involved in this, and he basically is outside of his house, and he's like, this all has to be documented, and Jeff Hardy pulls up on a motorcycle. He's playing the piano inside, and Jeff Hardy approaches him, and then they wind up in the backyard out in this big warehouse with the wrestling ring where they train. And they get in the ring, and then Matt Hardy, like, smashes Jeff Hardy over the head with a jar or something like that, and then they go to the big table spot at the end, and they sign the contract. There's even the one thing where Matt's trying to roll outside of the ring, and he can't even get underneath the bottom rope. He, like, gets stuck, and, you know, they don't even edit that. So it was one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's almost up there with the Wrestle Rock Rumble from 1986. You watch it, and you just cringe. I mean, what the fuck was that about? Matt Hardy is completely nuts, at least the Matt Hardy character is, and he's so not good at doing whatever he's trying to do. I mean, if he's trying to be Raven, or if he's trying to be like Bray Wyatt, or somebody like that, he's not pulling it off. It's terrible. It sucks. And my only hope is maybe it sucks on purpose. Maybe this is supposed to be so bad, and the quality is supposed to be so cheesy. I mean, the film footage was great. I mean, they did a director's cut with music, and they edited it, and there was drones flying over the property, you know, so everything was there, and it looked good, but the dialogue and the whole storyline and everything that's going on, Brother Nero, what the fuck? I just don't get it. I didn't get it. But part of me thinks there is a brilliant side to it. I'm not automatically thinking this was the dumbest thing ever because, I mean, I have not even thought of TNA. TNA has not even crossed my mind, and I don't know how long. I never know when their pay-per-views are or when they have them or how frequently they are. I don't even know who the fucking champion is over there right now, okay? But this has gotten me to notice TNA. This has gotten me to go to their YouTube page and watch this video. And it's probably not going to make me buy the pay-per-view or anything like that, but it's definitely made me aware of TNA, and it's created some buzz, and it got people talking about it. So, you know, that could have been the motivation there. I don't know if TNA or the Hardy Boys are that smart to make something so bad with the intent of having people talk about TNA and give them a little bit of notice and some recognition. I don't know. But to me, in a way, it was a pretty smart move because a lot of people are talking about TNA and that segment and everything going on with Matt and Jeff Hardy. If it's meant to be funny, if it's meant to be a big joke, I don't know how I feel about that either. I mean, these are two of their top stars right now. I mean, TNA doesn't have many guys, and Matt Hardy was just the TNA champion not that long ago. So to put this big, dumb comedy angle in one of your major storylines involving two of your hottest wrestlers, especially Jeff Hardy, who could go back to the WWE tomorrow and be right on top. I mean, he's always been over. I mean, TNA needs to recognize what an asset they have in Jeff Hardy. He's the only other mega star they really have left in that company to use. And look at what they're doing with him. They're sending him and his brother down to their North Carolina properties to ride dirt bikes and throw fake babies at each other and say, Brother Nero, Brother Nero. Like, god damn. So I don't know what to make of it. It was definitely cringeworthy to say the least, but I had to watch it like 3 times because it's like looking into the sun. You just can't not do it. And I went back and watched it a couple of times just because I was just confused. I didn't know what the fuck. So I was worried the thing would give me nightmares. So if anything, I found the segment hilarious and comical. Whether it was meant to be hilarious or not, I don't know, but I sure as hell laughed my ass off. That's my opinions on that. I will be back up here next week. I'm not sure if it will be immediately following Monday Night Raw, because it is the Go Home Money in the Bank show, and I got to come up here and do a predictions video. So it is possible that I might hold off predictions until after the SmackDown taping, so we can just make sure there's no other matches announced last minute for the pre-show or whatever, and I might be up here on Wednesday. So that's a little bit up in the air, but sometime in the next 48 hours after Monday Night Raw, check back on my YouTube page, and you will have episode 346 available. So I will talk to you in a couple of days. Have a great weekend. Until next time, peace.